Today I'm here to talk about gear. Everyone's favorite topic. Specifically, through hiking gear. I just got back from the Colorado Trail and I think it's been a while since I've done a gear list video, so I thought I would do an updated version. I tried some new things on this trail, some things worked, some things didn't, but let's just run through everything in a quick, comprehensive, easy to follow way, and then afterwards I'll kind of go into like base weight and some of the specifics about things that worked or didn't work. So first of all, my pack. I used the Hyperlite Unbound 40 small black, and then I added on the shoulder pocket accessory, which is where I keep my sunglasses and my phone. Shelter system. I started off the trail with the Hyperlite Unbound 2 because I was with Luke, so we needed a little more space, and then that went home with him. And for the second part of the trip, I used the Hyperlite Mid 1. Sleep system. I have my LL Bean 850 down 15 degree women's mummy bag, but it is discontinued, and a Thermarest blow up sleeping pad, and a sleeping bag liner, which I keep in my Hyperlite dry bag. Shoes, I rocked the Vivo Barefoot Tracker Force Escapes and camp shoes, Crocs. Clothing, I had my Under Armour t-shirt, 2 of them, my shorts, 3 pairs of underwear, 2 pairs of Darn Tough socks, my -33 merino wool turtleneck base layer, my Patagonia zip-up kind of sweatshirt, my Mountain Hardwear puffy hooded jacket, my Columbia rain jacket, and these random sleep pants from Old Navy, and I kept all that in a small Hyperlite pod. Food and water system. I have the Z-Packs Bear Bag kit with the bag, the rock bag, and the line, my Vargo titanium pot with the screw-on lid, a titanium spork, the Pocket Rocket stove, a fuel canister, Sawyer Squeeze water filter, 3 smart water bottles, and the 2-liter Ceanoc water bladder. For toiletries, I carried my mini toothbrush and paste, a little Dr. Bronner's soap, a Diva cup, toilet paper and trowel, hand sanitizer, nail clippers and tweezers, a small towel, wet wipes, razor, elastic, Q-tips, bug spray, sunblock, and I kept most of that in an OPSAC odorproof bag. Electronics, I kept those in a small Hyperlite stuff sack. I had my tripod for my phone, Anchor battery pack, 2 of them, a dual port charging block, all my charging cords, headphones, and this flashlight that I'm going to talk about. First aid and emergency, I carried a pocket knife, a lighter, these little fire starters, some band-aids, triple antibiotic packets, alcohol wipe packets, a little bit of gear repair tape, a couple of these blister like pre-cut tape pads, Tylenol, Benadryl, and Zyrtec, duct tape, which is on my trekking pole, needle and thread, an emergency poncho, which I'm going to talk about, toe warmers, and a bug mat. And then the last couple of things that didn't fit in were my trekking poles and my little minimalist wallet. I weighed my pack like all together. I didn't add up all the individual grams of everything, but I weighed my pack before I started my hike, and I was around 15 pounds, which is a little lighter than I was on the Appalachian Trail, but a little heavier than I was recently. I brought a couple extra things that I don't always hike with. But overall, 15 pounds, and that's kind of including like sunblock, bug spray, some of those things that sometimes people don't include in their base weight. I am including those things. I'm just not including food, water, worn clothing, and trekking poles. So 15 pounds, I'm pretty happy with. I would love to get it down more, and I think in certain situations, like certain hiking environments, I could definitely be lower weight than that. But where I was just hiking in Colorado and I saw everything from hail and sleet to 97 degrees, like I needed more things. So yeah, let's talk about some of the gear that was new for me this trail. So first of all, 2 of the big ones, my pack and my shelter. 2 of the big 3 were new for me this year, sort of. So my pack for this hike, I went with the Hyperlite Unbound 40, which is a new pack, but I have always rocked the Hyperlite Windrider 3400, or Hyperlite Windrider 55, I think it's called now. So they're pretty similar. It's not like it was wildly different. There's just some new features on this pack. First of all, it is smaller. So this is 40 liters. This is 50 liters because it's a size small. So this was a little bit smaller, but that was totally fine for me. I was very easily able to pack everything in here with up to, I think 6 days of food was our longest carry. Couple of the features that are different: this fabric pocket with the additional pocket. There's an underneath pocket that you could keep. I kept my emergency poncho. And then these pockets are a lot bigger on the side pockets. So that's another thing that was different. I normally carry 2 1-liter smart water bottles. I carried 1.5 liter smart water bottles, which it was easily able to fit into these pockets with other things in there too. So I was able to carry a little bit more water because on the Colorado Trail, water was a little bit sparser at times. But yeah, overall, amazing pack. This is my favorite company ever, if you don't already know that. And so on that theme with Hyperlite and my big 3, the other change was the shelter. So started off with the Unbound 2-person tent and then ended with the Mid 1-person tent. In the past, I've had other tents of theirs. I started the AT with the Echo 2, which doesn't exist anymore. Then they sent me a prototype 1-person tent, which I love, but that doesn't exactly exist. And then Luke and I used the Ultimate on the long trail, which is really big and spacious, but a little bit much sometimes for through hiking. So anyways, the Unbound 2 was perfect. It was a great size for the 2 of us. There was actually more space than we even really needed. Luke and I are not very tall, so super roomy. And then when he left and I went to the Mid 1, that was awesome. For the 1-person tent, it's a little bit bigger than the 1-person prototype that I have, and it has a vestibule, which my prototype didn't have, and it only uses 1 trekking pole to set it up, which I didn't really think that I cared about originally. But I was scared of bears, and so I was able to collapse my other trekking pole and have it in my tent with me, which made me feel like I had a weapon if I needed it in the middle of the night. So I did kind of like that. So yeah, both tents are amazing. I will definitely continue to use those in the future, absolutely. Another thing that was new for me was this flashlight, which is teeny tiny. So I put a little elastic on it so I wouldn't lose it and I could keep it on my wrist. And I swapped this out from, I used to use a normal headlamp. So the main reason, as you can tell, is this is way lighter weight. So this saves me some ounces for sure. Pros and cons, I mean, it's lighter weight, which is nice. There's a lot of features on it. It's an awesome flashlight. It's rechargeable, and it's the same cord as my Anchor battery pack, so that's nice. Really bright, but if you were night hiking, a headlamp is definitely a lot easier, especially if you use trekking poles. Although I will say this flashlight does come with a little clip. If you wear a hat, you could clip it to your hat, but I don't. I don't really do much night hiking or like setting up camp in the dark, so not a big deal to me, but I suppose some people it'd be worth carrying a headlamp just for the convenience of it. Another new thing for me, which is random, is a trowel. So this is for digging your cat holes when you have to go to the bathroom in the woods, and historically I've never carried one. I actually had to buy this before this trail because I just felt like I might have a harder time digging holes, and I was right on the Colorado Trail. A lot of places the ground was just more like solid and compact, and it would have been near impossible to dig a hole with a little rock or something, which is what I usually do. So I'm glad I had this. It doesn't weigh anything, it just takes up space. Some other gear that I changed, so sleeping bag liner. I started with a much lighter weight, probably not as warm sleeping bag liner, which I've had for years since the Appalachian Trail, but it like ripped one night, like got shredded overnight when I was rolling around. I don't even know how the hell that happened, but I got years of use out of it. It's fine. Luke never really uses his because he's just a warmer person than I am, and he was going home anyways, so he gave me his, which is a Sea to Summit Thermalite. I don't know, it's definitely heavier than the one I started with, but it got freaking cold on the Colorado Trail, so I was really glad I had this. Another change that I made on the Colorado Trail was adding an additional battery pack. So I usually carry one 20,000 Anchor battery pack. This is my original one. And then when we did a 6-day like stretch, I realized I was really cutting it close. That wouldn't be the case probably for most people, but because of doing YouTube and all the video editing, I didn't want to chance that I was going to run out of battery. So when I got to a town with a Walmart, I grabbed another one. So this is heavy as fuck. Another change I made on the trail was socks. So I've always rocked these exact Darn Tough socks. I love these socks, but I was getting a blister on the back of my heel. My socks were really old. They were really thin right on the back of the heel, and where I wasn't able to use a dryer a lot of the time when we did laundry, we were just washing it in the sink and hang drying. It was just getting like hard and compact, and I think that's what caused the blister. So I ditched one of my pairs of these socks because I carried two, and I was able to get to an outfitter and get a second pair of still Darn Tough socks, just shorter ones, not this exact style. Fresh new socks did the trick. Another random thing that happened, I usually carry like a little camp towel just for like wiping down my gear or my pot or whatever. My original one was pink and I lost it. I don't know where or when exactly. I think it was doing laundry in town. I definitely don't think it was on the trail. It was like a laundry mix-up. So I ended without a towel. It wasn't a big deal, but I do have a spare at home. Speaking of losing things on the trail, I lost a Croc. This is a new pair, but yeah, I hang my Crocs off the back of my pack, and the carabiner I had wasn't probably the best quality carabiner, and so one of my Crocs fell off. I think it was like the second to last day, which really pissed me off, but at least it was at the end of the trail. I know not everybody uses camp shoes, and I don't really on like short trips, but on a long distance hike, these are clutch. All right, let me see if I can find my tent stakes, because this was a little mishap on the trail, or not mishap, but I don't know if you can tell. They're not horrible, and I was still able to use them, but I constantly was bending my tent stakes because, like I said, the ground is like so compact. So yeah, I feel like I've had these tent stakes forever and now they're junk. Another mishap on the trail, my sleeping pad. So this didn't happen on the trail. I stand by these Thermarest Neo Air X-Lite sleeping pads. But the last time before the trail that I'd used it, months prior, apparently it was wet when I put it away, and I rolled it up and never thought about it again until I was on the Colorado Trail and realized it had mold on it. It was fine, it's just on this side, so what I did was still just blow it up and sleep on it, but I slept on this side, so it wasn't a big deal. But now that I'm home, I'm gonna buy a new one because I felt like I was breathing in mold when I was blowing it up every day. Something that I probably didn't need to bring was this Patagonia zip up like sweatshirt. I've usually always carried this on the AT and it did come in handy, but this trail I was worried that I was gonna be too cold at times, which I think was valid. So I brought an additional layer. This one is new for me. It's like a merino wool base layer, turtleneck, made by -33. And I love this thing. It's so comfortable. It was comfortable to hike in. It was comfortable overnight. So I feel like when I normally would have gone for this, I went for this instead. And I ended up, I don't think I wore this once on the trail. So I just carried it for no reason. I don't regret having the additional layer just in case, because there were some sketchy times with rain and stuff that if I wasn't super careful about what I was doing, then I might have needed an extra dry warm layer. But I didn't end up needing it, although it was comfortable to sleep on as my pillow because I don't carry a pillow, so I use my clothing bag. But there was nights where I was wearing everything except for this. So this was my pillow. Something that I want to shout out to is the little stupid $1 emergency ponchos. This thing costs $2, I think, $1, I don't know. It's just an emergency poncho. This is a new one, but I did carry one that I used on the Colorado Trail, and I was able to use it multiple times, even though it's kind of it's more meant to be like disposable. But yeah, it's something I always carry in my first aid kit and have rarely ever used in the past, but it was clutch on this hike. My rain jacket, it was just, some of the weather was so intense, it was just soaking through too quickly, and by having the emergency poncho over my rain jacket, I was able to stay mostly dry. And then I was keeping it in that bottom pocket on the pack, and so I was able to just whip it out with my pack still on and put it over, and it covers the pack too, which keeps your pack dry, which is nice if it's in your tent with you or whatever. And so yeah, I don't think, I feel like I was so grateful that I had that. I don't think I will ever hike without that. Speaking of it being cold, one thing that I didn't bring that maybe I feel like I should have or could have used was gloves. There was one storm situation where my hands got so cold that I literally could not feel my fingers. I could not zipper my rain jacket. It was kind of scary. I've always thought that I don't need to carry gloves because I carry 2 pairs of socks. So I have an extra pair of socks that I'm not wearing in my pack that I could use as gloves if necessary. And although that's true, 2 things. One, I was not prepared for that. They were completely buried. I keep my clothes all the way at the bottom of my pack in a dry bag, so it just started immediately crazy, spontaneously raining, and there was no way I'd have time to go get that out of the bottom of my pack. Everything else in my pack would have got wet. So that was poor planning on my part. But 2, even if I could have gotten to them, it was downpouring and my socks on my feet were wet and it was really cold overnight, so it wouldn't have made sense to take my dry socks and put them on my hands. I mean, I suppose if I was about to get frostbite, I would have done that, and they are wool, so they will keep you warm even when they're wet, but I didn't want to get my only pair of dry socks wet because then I wouldn't have been able to wear them that night. Another thing that I swapped out pretty quickly was sunblock. I brought a tiny little sunblock stick. I was thinking I just might need it for my face. I did not realize how freaking hot it gets in Colorado and that I was really gonna want it for my whole body. So I think the first town stop, I had to get a bigger sunblock. I want to talk about shoes for a second. Everybody's always so curious about these shoes. They're Vivo Barefoots. I probably put 100 miles on them before I did the hike, and then the Colorado Trail is almost 500 miles and it's really aggressive, rocky terrain at times, and they are so good. I could definitely continue to wear these for a while. The tread's like the tiniest bit worn off there, but they're fine for a while. They are like 0 drop and wide toe box, which is all the rage these days. They are boots and they are leather, but they're like flexible, so it doesn't feel like a sturdy boot. You don't have to worry about blisters for the most part. Like I said, that was a sock issue, I think. So yeah, I did love these. However, I will say in the middle of the trail on my big mile days and my big elevation days, so we did like Mount Elbert, really intense elevation gain, and then 2 like 22-mile days the next 2 days after that. The back of my heel became black, like stained black. It's almost like the back of the shoe like was melting. I don't know. So, and I did have a little blister at that time. That was right after the whole sock issue on the back of my heel, so the blister was stained black. It was really weird. So I ended up just using duct tape, which by the way I keep on my trekking pole so that I'm not carrying it, and I never use it normally, but I ended up using most of my duct tape. I almost went through it all, and like taping the backs of the heel inside the boot and that fixed the problem. So I don't know, I do love these shoes and I do want to recommend them, but there's that. And then the last thing I want to talk about is my sleeping bag. I mentioned it's discontinued anyways. It has been for years, but it's time for me to get a new sleeping bag. It did me good. The whole AT, the long trail, the Colorado Trail, and everything in between. But I don't know if you can really see it on the video. It's definitely starting to get like thin at spots. Like it almost always looks like it's wet or something, but it's just the feathers have, you know, come out or dispersed or got crushed or whatever. So I feel like it's a 15-degree bag, but I don't feel like it's really a 15-degree bag anymore. So I think it's time. And before you suggest a quilt to me, no. I definitely am a fan of the hood. I either have it over me if it's really cold, or if it's not cold, I actually like roll it up and use it as my pillow with my clothes in it. And the mummy bag does feel a little restrictive, I guess, if I'm all zipped up, but I'm cold and this has always kept me warm. I am not an open toe box, whatever type of person. And you can mostly unzip this all the way, so I can still open it up as a blanket and just keep my foot inside the little foot box if I want when it's warm out. So anyways, it's time for a new sleeping bag. I am gonna start looking for something, but LL Bean doesn't really do this type of sleeping bag anymore, I don't think. So this video is probably way too long. So let's wrap it up. Thanks for coming on this gear adventure with me today. And then lastly, I just want to say, as much as I do like gear and I do try to get my pack weight as light as possible, I'm not gear crazy or weight crazy either. And so I don't know what I'm trying to say other than if your pack is lighter than mine or heavier than mine, that's great for you. I'm happy for you. Bye guys, see you in the next video.